The Chicago Cubs roller coaster season continues. They're hot once again.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Sam Olber, and you are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Today, I'm joined by my good buddy, Alex Masciopinto, also somebody that's dabbled working in pro baseball. He's one of those guys I reference when I say that I got friends in the game that know more about the analytics side than I do. So we're going to have a real fun conversation later in the show about the Cubs contract situation, no trade clauses, WAR, WRC+. It's going to be a great time. But we're first going to talk about this slugfest over at Clark and Addison on Tuesday night. Cubs win 9-7. They are one of the hottest teams in baseball again, Alex. And today they finally took out those big slugging bats and hit a bunch of home runs.
Yeah, great to see. Dansby getting a couple, Bregman finally going yard. That's the type of
I
offense.
can take my poll.
Yeah. No, it is possible. It does happen. And hopefully he can maybe use it and get on a run. I think Matt alluded to it yesterday or the show previously that hopefully he could start to string some stuff together and maybe it's happening. The great night to hit, so you can't say much about Boyd letting in 3 over 5 and Assad, it wasn't pretty at the end, but was doing his job, and it was good enough. And that's all you can ask for when with the depth we have.
Yeah, it wasn't a good outing for Assad. He imploded there a little bit. But, at this point, with where they're at pitching-wise, if they just hold on, it's good enough. And they did that Tuesday night. And they really did a good job on Monday night. But, yeah, the story was the 5 home run balls, 2 from Dansby, 1 from Bregman. I mean, finally to see him go pull side, as we hear about over and over again. Bush got one, who's also quietly been in a little bit of a power slump. And then Pete, who's having statistically the best month in Cubs history. I mean, Sosa's 20-homer, 98 season sticks out as the most memorable one. But if you actually look beneath the numbers, which we're going to do a lot of today, this Pete month is better than that. Are you surprised at how quickly it looks like he's just kind of, as I call it, like baseball nirvana'd it, where it just feels like he's locked in, he's taking the pitches he's supposed to take, he's hitting the pitches? Like, are you surprised that it just flipped like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally am. I mean, it's obviously what he was able to accomplish in the period last year where he was very hot first half of the season or so was eye-opening and showed that like this type of thing is possible and it's in there somewhere. But also, it's not as if he had a bad month or two. I mean, he was putting up bad numbers for like a reasonable amount of time that makes you nervous. Obviously, that the potential is in there and he's a young guy and guys go through stuff. But you're always waiting and hoping that the adjustments get made, and they've been made. And it's not, 2 weeks of hitting the ball hard. I mean, he's stringing together, as you described, like a pretty epic run. And so, to the extent that obviously this exact output is not sustainable, but to the extent that like his floor raises and his ceiling remains extremely high, to do it this quickly and to do it at this magnitude is surprising, not shocking, but you could see how, what happened last year could have been a flash in the pan or could have been the ceiling, and he's doing even better, I think, at this moment.
Yeah, and then like you said, I mean, the Bregman homer, I need to see a little bit more before I hop on that bandwagon. I will say, not that it makes me feel any better, because I don't really judge. I'm not a big like, hey, what's everybody else doing sort of thing. But when you see Tatis coming into this series with 3 homers, now he has 5. You see Machado hitting 189. These are high-priced guys that are struggling. I don't want to step too much on the toes of what we're going to talk about in a bit here, but is there an element of like, you look around baseball, you see the Cal Raleighs of the world hitting 170. Like I said, Machado, Tatis, Bregman, you name it. There's a lot of guys struggling. Is there a part of you that's kind of like, hey, it actually could be worse? Let's still fight through this thing, or is it like I'm just not seeing any signs?
Yeah, I mean, by no means am I like willing to call the Bregman deal a dud, and say like it's over. It's a long deal, and he's got a body of work that I think deserves more respect than that. But at the same time, like I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you that this is not the stat line he'd like to put up through this many games. And we're roughly halfway through the season. It's not as if it's over, but there's only so much time to really turn it around. Like in all likelihood, he's going to have a below average season, barring like a PCA type run. That's disappointing. But you bring up a great point, which is like superstars that have traditionally had exceptional production, are sort of struggling this year. Does that dampen the hit? I think that's a pretty generous way to look at it, because other people are struggling.
Well,
It's okay
Alex,
that he is,
I'm an
but
optimistic guy.
if I know one thing about you,
Yeah.
it's that you're sunshine and rainbows. Does it make you feel a little better? Maybe it does. But Tatis or Machado struggling, I don't think gives Bregman the right to necessarily. But you raise a good point that like, and we'll get into it a bit, that the risk associated with these big contracts is real, and it has to be calculated when you're looking into signing them.
It's probably a generous way of looking at it. But Dansby Swanson, he hit 2 homers today. Wind was howling out. I could see it now. Everybody flashing the WRC plus sign of, hey, his WRC, I haven't looked at what it is, but hey, his WRC plus is back to league average, which obviously physically makes me want to vomit. But at the same time, there's nothing that you could do about the past. The past is done. And to be fair to the Cubs, they are 10 games over 500. And the thing is they're chasing a team on pace to win 101 games. And if the Brewers were, like I said, I predicted them to win 90 games, which is right around what they're on pace for, believe it or not. Maybe, I guess, was it a little bit less, a little bit more? I'm trying to think. Right around there, it feels like that. So it's hard to complain independently of what they're doing, but it was good to see, I guess, Dansby, stack up some bombs tonight.
Yeah, definitely. The Dansby having a better season than he was having is imperative, I think, especially considering, what's going on with the rest of the roster. And as you say, like the Brewers are winning a lot of games, and more than Vegas expected, and more than I think just about anybody expected. And, so for the Cubs to be able to be in the position that they're in, given the injury troubles that they're having across the roster, which are monumental and a statistic anomaly, is pretty impressive.
I wonder how it's going to look when Dansby, finishes the year probably like a 211 with 24 home runs and all these things statistically that, I guess it just depends where the Cubs end up. But I guess in my head, I just can't get through that offensive stretch that they all had. Maybe I have to do that. But what I really have had you on for, what I really wanted to have you on for, is to talk about statistics. I want to talk about how contracts and stuff are allocated. If you think the Cubs are doing it right by giving 5-6 guys between 20 and 35 million a year. I want to talk about all that stuff. And we're going to do that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Nothing like watching a Chicago Cubs game. Even better when you get to watch it live. The excitement, the fans. There's nothing like a nice late June night like tonight. 95 degrees, ball flying out of the park. You get to see a Cubs win. There's nothing like it. That's where there's Game Time. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included. The price you see, what you see is what you pay, period. Folks, I've gone to only 2 games this year. I'll go to a few more as the season goes. I use Game Time every single time. It's the best way. 2 taps and it's done. No stress, no hidden fees, just great seats and minutes. That's what makes it so easy to decide last minute to hit a game. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you for making Locked On Cubs your first list of the day. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club, which includes ad-free episodes and more. Go to lockedoncubs.supercast.com or click the link in this episode description. So there's been a big debate among baseball lately. Alex, I don't know how familiar you are with it. Like on social media, Jorge Posada on a podcast came out and was like, baseball today is garbage. The game's smarter on paper, but dumber between the lines. You got Kirk Herbstreit went crazy on Twitter, ripping modern baseball and the modern statistics. So I guess I'm gonna ask you an open-ended question here, but I want to know where you're at first before we get into Cubs stuff. Where are you at with like modern baseball? If I were to tell you right now, you run a team, what's the one stat position player wise you'd be looking at? What do you think there's anything that's overdone? Because you're familiar with statistics and models and things like this. How do you feel like the game is being handled by front office nerds? And you are a nerd, by the way. Nerds like yourself that have taken all the jobs for people like me that just like baseball.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. Listen, I think that in terms of the watchability and the quality of the product and what people want to see and want to watch, I think there's a perfectly good argument to be made that the ball's not being put in play enough, that the frequency of strikeouts that is tolerable given other positive statistics is too high. And I think that a lot of that, or at least some of that, has been generated by a change in philosophy or a change in like worldview of what it means and how to win baseball games. Now, I do think there's other things that have contributed to that. I think the fact that there are human beings throwing a baseball 105 miles an hour has made it harder to, be Tony Gwynn.
Right.
But it is, I think it is fair to say that, the over scientification of the game is not terribly digestible for a lot of folks. It's easy to understand and fun to watch hit the ball and get on base 35% of the time. And it's a little less easy to tolerate guys who are striking out a third of the time and hitting 30 or 40 home runs, and I get that. Now that said, a lot of the data that I have my own complaints about, like WAR is something I think we'll talk about, and WAR
Please.
is something that it requires nuance and it's far from perfect. But it's really convenient in a lot of ways, both mathematically, to be able to have like a statistic that tells you this player good, this player not as good. When you're talking about building complex models that try to generate wins, it's extremely convenient not to have to use 15 variables and instead to be able to condense that into one. And, an argument you might come back on is, well, how good is WAR really at telling us how many wins above replacement we are getting? Is it accurate? These are probabilities we're talking about. There are assumptions made in those models that calculate WAR. And that's true. But the correlations are pretty good. Like at the end of the year, when you look at which teams had the most WAR and how many wins do they have, you're looking at like 80 to 90% correlations on a given year. Now, is a 20% error like satisfactory when you're talking about 30 games or something. That's not ideal or perfect, and that's why WAR does require nuance, but it's convenient from a math perspective, and it's convenient from a media perspective. Like it's very easy to digest WAR, to say that here's the number, this guy's good, or here's the number, this guy's bad. But the statistic itself is, there's a reason it's kind of like used a bunch, and it is that it's not just convenient, but it's sort of elegant in a way that the replacement level is adjusted based on how the league is doing. Like,
Sure.
You can compare WAR from season A to season B if you worry about outperforming the league, as opposed to just like what the raw numbers are.
As does WRC plus.
As is WRC plus. So I think WAR is very good for a lot of things. Now, it requires nuance. Like, there are other statistics that are more correlative to winning. Like, run differential is way more correlative to winning baseball games. WAR does not care when you are hitting. WAR does not necessarily...
Say that one last one again, please.
Yeah, WAR does not care when you are hitting. And this is someplace that me, and as you call it, the nerd side of the game, and you on the more baseball side, would come to agree on, is that I think that analytics has wholly undervalued situational hitting. And there's data, and maybe you'll like this one a little less, but there is data analysis that can be done to show this. Like, you can take a moving average of Ian Happ over 30 at bats, 50 at bats, whatever you want to call it, and you can watch him trend into extremely low territory and trend into extremely high territory, and you can use that to decide how is he hitting in this given moment. And kind of a metaphor that I think I've heard you use is, if you're playing blackjack and you have 16 and the dealer has 17, you're supposed to hit every single time. But sometimes you lose because you hit, and you would have won had you not hit. Right. And the answer to that is, you're still supposed to play the odds. But my retort to that is, if you're counting cards and you know the count, then maybe you don't hit. And in baseball, you are always counting cards. You have everything in front of you to make decisions that, given Ian Happ's body of work, may not make sense. And I use Ian Happ for no reason, but given a player's body of work, might not make any sense. But given 30 days of data or 50 at bats of data, or the way things are trending, it might work. I mean, the hot hand fallacy is a fallacy in basketball. There's not a lot of data to show that if you make one shot, you're going to make the next shot. But in baseball, there's so much data. It's so repetitive. There are players who, you can show are hitting better in given times, and, deserve more at bats, maybe deserve to be pinch hit for. These are types of things that I think, you point out from like a philosophical baseball level, that I think the data actually can back. You just, data's manipulatable. Like you
Right.
have to go look for it.
But that's the thing. And I do want to let the audience know, I got a 3 on my AP stats exam, just barely college credit. In some universities, some would not take a 3. That's my thing of like, I'm not the get off my lawn anti-analytic guy. In fact, in my family, I'm the only one that really goes for it. Like, I was the first one to be like, hey, ballpark factor. Like, this guy plays at Coors Field. I'm not going to take what he does seriously at Coors Field versus what somebody does at Petco Park. Like, I was doing that years ago. I just think that we've gone really black and white with it. And there's a way we can meet in the middle. And using the Cubs as an example, we'll get to more Cubs specific thing in a minute, guys. I know that's why you're here. Like, okay, WRC plus, like that's the one that I use. I always use WRC plus because that's the one I really could compare offensive stuff with an era. Like the other day, I was looking at Mickey Mantle and how his last year, he was talking about how awful he was, and he was banged up and injured, and he hit like 239. But in 1968, that was Bob Gibson's year. That was a year of a pitcher. He actually had a 145 WRC plus his final year when he thought he stunk. And I could just see him, someone coming from this era saying, hey, you're actually 45% better than league average. He's like, well, I stink. I'm done. Like, it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I think there's a statistic out there that we could just get more creative with it. Like, is there a variance metric or like a volatility metric to say, hey, you know what? Dansby Swanson's going to end the year with a 109 WRC plus, but his volatility throughout the year, where he literally went a month and a half hitting 120, really hurt the Cubs. Something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I think measuring volatility in a given player's performance or projected performance is something that's probably underdone at the professional level, but I think is extremely important. Partly for reasons I was saying earlier. Like there are players on the Cubs, and it's not just one of them. Like I've said Ian Happ a couple times, but Seiya can be this way.
Oh, hell are.
Yeah, and you can determine it pretty simply, basically the standard deviation over a given time period. Again, call it 30 at bats, 50 at bats, whatever you want to use. And then you run that over the course of a year or a career or whatever. You can look at the standard deviation of that average and say, this guy has a massive standard deviation. He's highly volatile. And you can use that to inform yourself on what your expectations can be, and it can be encouraging. When Ian Happ is terrible, he's going to be great at some point. It's coming.
Right.
Seiya's the same way. He'll hit 12 home runs in a month, and you can, if the data allows, you can basically count on that, or at least plan for it, if not count on it. So this is not meant to say just bench the guys when they're playing poorly. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying you can make more informed decisions about the value of a player, how they contribute to winning. If you hit 5 home runs this is an insane example, but if you hit 5 home runs in a month every third day, that's different than hitting 5 home runs in a month in one series. It just is. And that's the type of considerations that I think I think they are made certainly at the professional level, but I do think that they are probably underanalyzed from a volatility and value of volatility perspective.
All right, more with Alex coming up next. We're going to get into some more Cubs specific stuff and some roster construction stuff. We're going to talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. Now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals mean more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token, folks. If you're not into the World Cup, I don't know what to tell you. I'm trying to get my dad to watch it. He refuses. Every game has been brilliant. The United States takes on Bosnia and Herzegovina Wednesday night in probably maybe the most anticipated match in modern USA soccer history. As we're recording right now, Mexico looks tremendous against Ecuador, playing a home game. The atmosphere is electric. You really want to get in on this. It's unbelievable to watch. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started right now. I'm Sam Olber, and I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. And thank you for making Locked On Cubs the #1 Cubs podcast in the world. We finally passed up Rizzo and Ross. We reclaimed our #1 spot on the rankings. It took a while, rightfully so, but we're back. All right, Cubs roster construction. We don't have a ton of time here. I feel like we can go forever. So go short on some of these so I want to hit you some rapid fire.
Sure.
Let's start with this. Are you team, and again, I know it's not one or the other, but are you more team, let's pay a bunch of nice players, 20 plus million bucks a year, 25, 30 million bucks a year like the Cubs are doing? Or do you think a higher payroll team should be like, hey, let's go for a white whale, meaning one of the best guys, Ohtani, Soto, Judge. There's not many of them these days, Skeen, Skubal, whoever. A couple of those, and then internally, you should be able to produce an Ian Happ. You should be able to produce a Seiya Suzuki, kind of like what the Brewers do on that ground. Where do you stand with that roster construction?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So I think a lot of it, this is maybe not the most satisfying thing, but it depends a little bit on the hand that you're dealt. So, right now,
Cubs
that's
hand.
right. So the Cubs have, in some really, really great players who are under control for some time. You've got PCA, you've got Nico Horner, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a lot of payroll rolling off. So what are you supposed to do? I am more of the opinion, especially when you've got a potential superstar in Pete, a guy who, on the open market, getting rid of like the control rules might be worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. You have to use that excess value to your advantage, and I think that allows you to go do something like you're talking about and go get a really, really big contract or two. Should you spread that out among 3 or 4 players? Should you go get the real big difference maker? Listen, in a world of the Dodgers and the Phillies and even some of these like higher salary teams that aren't really winning right now, it's tough to see how you can win championships without one of the best players in the league, or even one on either side of the ball, pitcher and batter, and maybe more than one of each of those guys. So I think it's tough to spend your way into a championship team with a bunch of these like mid-sized contracts.
Do you think that the league has become a little bit too, how do I say this? Like everybody has access to all these numbers. You and I have talked about this on the phone before. So like, is it a coincidence that the entire American League, besides 2 teams, is extremely mediocre? Like with everybody using the same data, the same similar models, do you think teams like the Brewers and Rays, these small market teams, are they pivoting? Or is everyone using you think the same thing, and the Brewers have just developed this ridiculous pitching lab that's just ahead of everybody else?
Yeah, I think the data analytics portion of baseball is extraordinarily well subscribed. And that doesn't mean there's differences. There's not differences. I'm not saying the Cubs do the same thing the Dodgers do, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly there's differences. You have different people working with different backgrounds, but the philosophy and the approach that was sort of developed by Podesta and Bean, and then accelerated and expanded by everybody, kind of exists everywhere in some capacity. So you don't have an edge there anymore, unless you're really, really innovative. And where can you be innovative? The Brewers and the Rays are doing it by doing exceptionally well in the draft, doing exceptionally well in the international draft, doing exceptionally well by picking up free agents that nobody wants or trading for undervalued players. They're not paying the best players in the world to be the best players in the world. They're also not winning championships. But if you combine the ability to do that with the ability to spend some money, that is probably how you compete with these massive spending teams. And that's way easier said than done. But it goes to your first question, which is, if you clog your roster up with a bunch of guys who are expensive but not terribly expensive, who are unlikely to really, they could outperform a little, but they're not. Right. Ian Happ can have a good year, but he's never going to be Shohei Ohtani.
For Ian Happ to outperform expectations the way Jed describes, he'd have to hit 40 home runs and have an OPS in the 940s. He's just not capable of doing that.
That's right. So to get really, really high cost guys who just hit expectations, which are extraordinarily high, and to have guys who make between $2 and $14 million who can outperform, and then you use that outperformance, the value you've derived from that outperformance, to pay the big guys, assuming you don't get a Tatis, Machado, Bregman year out of those guys. I think that is the approach that makes the most sense when you're competing with the Dodgers of the world.
Why are the Cubs so obsessed with no trade clauses? And are they? Does it hurt the value as much as I say it does on the show?
Yeah, frankly, I think that they made a mistake. I don't think that they intended to have whatever they have, 5 or 6 of them at the exact same time.
They have 57 no trade clauses and 26 players.
That's right. I think that it's really hard to have like a model, a mathematical framework of how you look at no trade clauses, because they're not like other options. A player option or a team option is pretty simple. Like, the player exercises the player option when you're going to give them more money than the market will. The team exercises it in the opposite direction. Those are kind of cut and dry.
But a no trade,
But a no trade clause is difficult to model. Like, am I trading you because you're terrible and I'm paying you too much and I'm dumping a roster space and money? Or am I trading you because you're great and we're bad and I'm trying to get assets? So to build that into a framework that tells me what the value of a no trade clause is extraordinarily difficult. And I think instead you're supposed to analyze it from a roster perspective with the intent to maintain flexibility and use it as a way to get value. So there's however many players there are in the league who are just going to get one. That's the way it is. After that, Ian Happ's a good example. It was a shorter contract that wasn't terribly expensive. Maybe the juice was the no trade clause. Fine.
And then you also have the 10 stuff, the 10-year stuff where you automatically get the no trade, which I think was coming for Nico's deal, right? So that really didn't hurt him as much. The 10, what is it? The 10-5? Is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Last one. This is all really good stuff. Hope people are appreciating this. Do you think that Bregman, Dansby, Nico, any of those have an opportunity to still grade out? Now, if the Cubs win the World Series, doesn't matter. But
Sure.
Do any of those have a chance to grade out as good contracts in the long run? I obviously I think Nico would be the easy one to say yes. And then the follow-up would be, what's your prediction, to put you on the spot, what happens with Seiya and Happ this offseason?
Yeah, so as you said, Nico's the easiest to say. He could outperform. He's the youngest. He's the one who still stands to, reasonably get better if you're like grading out a curve of how players
if they stop asking him to pull home runs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. If they let him play his game and he does play his game, he's great at it. So he can, I think, overvalue. He also could become a shortstop, and that increases the value just kind of like on its face.
Sure.
The Dansby contract is tough. As long as he can play Gold Glove defense and be an average hitter, I've heard you say that. I've heard dozens of people say that. Then it probably grades out well, just because of the inflation of what it costs to get like a Gold Glove shortstop. So 5 years from now, or 5 years is wrong, 3 years from now, is if he's still playing Gold Glove defense, even if he's OPSing 710, like it's probably going to cost more than what you're paying him to replace him at that level. Bregman, it's hard to say. I mean, he's also not the youngest guy on the team. He's probably getting towards that hump of the curve where you start to flatten and then go down. And this year has not been encouraging, but as a fan, I maintain optimism and hopefully he can improve and play better. But I would say, him and Dansby. I don't know necessarily who is more likely to outperform, but I'm less optimistic than
neither one of them are outperforming.
That's right. As of now, certainly.
We're hoping that they just, make it not a bad deal.
As for Happ and Seiya, prior to the year, I had the standard prediction, which is one will be back and one won't. I think, unfortunately, a lot is going to depend, and we haven't talked about this yet because it changes everything I've already said completely. But what happens with this CBA is going to be massive, and without knowing what that is, it's very difficult to say who they're going to pay, what the plan is, how are they going to compete, how are we grandfathering in all these crazy contracts.
They are probably outside of a Rosarena, they're probably the two, like a Rosarena-ish. I mean, like they're probably the two, as much as it pains me because I'm critical of both of them sometimes, they're probably the two best guys on the market, outfield wise, from what I've seen.
Yeah, so if you're getting rid of them and CBA notwithstanding, or getting rid of one of them, like you really would like to use that money to improve in places where you're extremely weak at the moment, which is your pitching. If you can have like a real high quality starting pitcher, a one or a two come in, Steele's coming back, maybe at the end of the year you're getting Horton, maybe that's a value swap you can look at. And I'm sure they will look at that. But yeah, without knowing how much money there's to spend, it's hard to say.
Great. Really glad you stood on your toes for that one. All right, Alex, thanks for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. I really think, too, in the offseason, CBA stuff would be really fun to have you come on, maybe explain some stuff to people like me. But we appreciate you coming on. And it's funny, when I called you, when we talked about coming on, I was expecting the Cubs to kind of get beat down by the Brewers. And since we've talked, they haven't lost a game. And hopefully we could still have a special season.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me on. I'm a big fan of the show. You, Matt, do a great job. I've been watching you for a long time. Congratulations on your success. And again, thanks for having me. It was great.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Cubs. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. He's Alex Masciopinto. I'm Sam Olber. This is Locked On Cubs.